So someone asked me to do a video on the birth of the ego and what the ego is, where it comes from, and I thought it would be a good topic to combine with um, my first attempt to reckon with what YouTube is actually and what's going um, on this website and other sites like it, and what it means that so many people are coming online and sharing, communicating, discussing, figuring things out, and really learning how to talk to one another. Because it seems it's some kind of intersubjective awakening, I think. And it took me a while at first to get used to this medium, talking to a camera. Um, Once I got used to it, once I just had to take it seriously, and then all of a sudden it became this amazing way of communicating, and it's changing the way I feel, not just when I'm home at my house online on the internet, but when I go out and I'm around people, and in public, I feel more at home somehow. And I think what YouTube is doing, at least to me, is it's dissolving my ego, and it seems like a contradiction because this is YouTube. This is the website where I'm supposed to become a star, and post myself doing crazy things, and so people will favor me and subscribe, and I'll get all these props from other people and stuff. And but that's not what it's about. And there seems to be a large community of YouTubers that's not what it's about for them either, and they're all coming on here just to discuss and to learn from one another, and that's amazing. And but that seems to be the death of the ego. If we wanted to talk about the birth of the ego, we would have to look probably at the first written languages. I think the first alphabets had a lot to do with this new mode of consciousness developing in human beings. If we go back to ancient Greece, when the first Greek alphabet was stabilized and written down, and people began to learn it on a massive scale, a whole community could become knit together by stories. Um, think of the Iliad and the Odyssey. These are the cultural mythology of these early ancient Greek peoples, and the fact that they could all read those stories and identify with the characters gave them this common worldview, which was really this common ego structure that they all shared. So there weren't yet separate egos in each individual. There was no really notion of individual, at least as we consider it now. I don't think. I think they were more community centered, and they got their identity directly from their culture, and they didn't try to separate themselves from it because all they knew were these few texts, these few books, these few stories, and that gave them this primordial communal ego. But then, if we look at Socrates and Plato and the rise of rationality and the rise of having to give reasons for what you believe in, now we're seeing this individual ego structure start to be born inside each individual person, as they are now they're being asked to have opinions themselves. Instead of the answers being in the gods of the tradition, the answers are now your answers, and you have to justify yourself. And all of a sudden, this sense of I-ness and self-centeredness started to develop. And it's almost it's developed in such a exponentially significant way 2,500 years later in modern times that all of our technology nowadays is almost based on catering to this this ego that we now cherish to such a great extent. I mean, the individual rights of each person now is what's most important. Expressing what you feel, expressing what you think, expressing, the visions that you have. And it's almost being overemphasized instead of and in place of the community, because the community is falling apart, the family structure is falling apart, society is falling apart, but yet the individual ego is as glorious and shining and radiant and full of expression as it's ever been. And it seems out of balance, and I think YouTube is helping to correct that balance. But I just was reminded of a Robin Williams stand-up act. I think it's from Live on Broadway, where he pretends to be a male cat, and he's walking around the stage with a water bottle, pretending to piss on everything like a cat would, and say, "Yep, that's mine, I'll take that." And that's basically what the ego does. The ego goes around trying to own things, trying to have things, trying to grab onto, whether it's words to describe itself or whether it's products to express itself to the society, for people to have ideas about it. So it's a very possessive way of being. But the ego nowadays is not just this communal ego. As I said, it's a separate ego, and in that sense, it's reflecting back on itself. It's a self-conscious ego, whereas the communal ego is only a conscious ego. It's almost immediately present in its community. Our egos are so separated and so isolated that we can't be immediately present anymore. We have to think about what we're going to do before we do it. We have to plan out our actions. We're so mediated. We're so aware of our culture and aware of how others perceive us that we're almost a prisoner to our own self-image, because we hold ourselves back and we're not honest and open because we feel others are judging us, because we're judging others. And it's this self-affirming prophecy. And the ego structure is very, very strong and very frightening, because when you try to break through it, when you try to question it, it always finds a way to scare you, to frighten you, and make you feel weak and powerless to it. And it's really a function of the way our consumerist society works, because it's built to make you fearful of transcending your ego, because the ego is what allows the market society that we live in to function. It's what sells products, not that we need, but that we want, that the ego wants to define itself. And so our society is really structured to hold us back, to keep us from transforming. But the internet is letting it all free, I think. YouTube is really changing everything, because it's such a hyper awareness. We're becoming so hyper aware of ourselves that the ego is becoming impossible. So yeah, thanks for listening.